Hello all, it's J-Mix here, and I'd like to welcome all my YouTube subs and viewers to part 1 of my full-length interview with Gregory Big Hutch Hutchinson, also known as Cold 187. Big Hutch just released an album called The Big Hit on April 1st, and it's out on iTunes and anywhere you can buy music. So I highly recommend that all my YouTube subs and viewers go check out Big Hutch and The Big Hit. So without any further ado, here's part 1 of my exclusive interview with Cold 187.
What's up with it?
Who influenced you musically?
Well, my biggest influence will probably be my father and my uncle. You know, which my father was a writer and a producer at Motown, Richard Hutch, and my uncle was Willie Hutch. And that's probably my biggest influence. Besides that, you know, I mean, I like a lot of 60s and 70s music, you know, Parliament Funkadelic, of course. The Beatles, I love, the Ohio Players, Curtis Mayfield, James Brown, and stuff like that. When we talk about Isaac Hayes, of course. You know, we talk about music part. Hip hop, I'm more so gravitated towards, you know, the lyrical cats, you know, like Run from Run DMC, Rakim, you know, of course the hard note stuff like NWA and Eazy-E and Tupac, you know, primarily like in the mix of, you know, but it's kind of, you know, Tupac's kind of my era, it's my colleague, so definitely was influenced by, you know, gelling with them just as well as NWA and Eazy-E. They're all in, you know, they're my colleagues. So when it comes to outside of that, it's more musical that I was influenced by than hip hop a lot, you know, because I grew up as a musician first.
When did you first realize that you had a musical talent?
Probably about 8 years old, you know. So I was probably like in the fourth, fifth grade when I started getting into music. You know, unlike a lot of kids, I was into a lot of sports and stuff like that. I'd done the sports thing, you know, Little League and things like that, but I more gravitated to what my father and my uncle was doing. That's why I was highly influenced by them. I say that I'm highly influenced by them because I more so wanted to go into the field that they were in at a very, very young age. My dad said I wrote my first song when I was like 6. I don't know, I can't remember, but that's what he said. I mean, rest in peace, Richard A. But yeah, you know what I mean? That's what he said. So.
Can you tell us fans out there about the origins of Above the Law?
Well, I mean, our origins of our sound basically is a mixture of, you know, probably soul, rhythm and blues, hardcore hip hop, you know, origin of music, you know, we come from LA County, which is the city of Pomona, California. And we kind of gravitated to a lot of things that were going on in the city because we kind of broke bread with a lot of cats when we were in the streets and cats in South Central and Compton. You know, our sound, you know, that's why we always, you know, we go by one thing. You know, we're from Pomona, but our sound, you know, was discovered by some cats from South Central, which was Laylaw, and actually his brother Gomac, and then another one of my buddies, you know, just like a brother enough, and his brother, rest in peace, Dooley. They actually bought our demo tape to Laylaw, which he got it to Eazy-E, and then you know the sound was actually launched by a Compton clique. So you know, we're basically our sound comes from Pomona, but it's kind of was put on the map by cats from South Central, and it was actually showed to the world from some cats from Compton, which was Eazy and Dr. Dre. So that's it in a nutshell of the origins where it comes from.
Can you tell us about your first day at Ruthless Records and the story behind coming to that label?
Well, you know, the funny thing about it was when we met Eazy-E and Dr. Dre, which is who we met him at the studio at the time of Audio Achievement, which was the Ruthless House studio, basically, you know what I'm saying? They just took over the studio out in Torrance, California. So when we first came in, you know, it used to be this big boom box in the front room, and you know, this was like a reference, and you know, understand it's 1989 right now. So this was a big reference. If your songs was bumping in that little boom box right there was something to go with. We didn't even take it in the big studio. They just listen out in the little lobby in the little lounge area and listen to, you know, the Live Like Hustlers demo on a boombox, you know, and you know they went crazy right there in the lounge area. It was like, man, we gotta sign these kids, man. These kids is hot, you know. You know, we were street cats, you know, so we didn't really. All we were trying to do was make some legitimate money. You know, we was on the street hustle. We was just trying to make some legitimate money. So we definitely was going nuts at the time to be able to make some legal paper. So, but you know, I never experienced something so down to earth like coming to a label where the CEO was like the homie. You know, so it wasn't like really no corporate thing. I met cats like Jerry Heller after the fact. I didn't meet him first. I met Eazy-E and Dr. Dre first. And the first person I actually met out of NWA was Ice Cube. So, you know, before we even had that, they were, you know, him and Law was on tour, like bumping our tape. And, you know, by the time, you know, they took a break and then they came home and I want to say it was mixing No One Can Do It Better album at the time. And then we came down with the Living Like Hustlers demo. And like I said, it was just like, you know, meeting somebody in the hood and just bumping your demo tape, you know. Wasn't no big company at the time. It was actually Ruthless was just one room in Canoga Park at the time. So, you know, coming to the studio, a big full-fledged studio, full-blown studio, which was great. You know what I mean? It was incredible. They opened their doors and welcomed us in and respected and loved what we was doing.
You knew Eazy-E the person. What do you feel people's biggest misconception is of Eazy-E all these years later?
I mean, he's a very down to earth, hard nosed businessman. I mean, the thing I'm saying, the reason why I say that, and his greatest asset is that he was smart enough to know what he couldn't do. Um, and he didn't really consider himself as being a rapper, so he knew he had to have brilliant people around him, and he was accepting of that. I think the biggest misconception of him is that he was like this tyrant, like do-no type of cat, and he wasn't. You know, he was really a loyal dude. He really was focused on everybody trying to have something. He really was a dude that extended himself further than I've ever seen anybody do up to now that have the money like Eazy didn't have at the time he did it. You know, the biggest misconception to me is of that. You know, that they think he was a crook. They think he was like this bad dude. You know, he wasn't this rowdy, tear up shit type of cat. He was really a poised and brilliant businessman. You know, and I think he only gets credit for being like the godfather of gangster rap, which he was like the most brilliant businessman you can meet, probably. I mean, he had things like how you have beats by Dre now. You have like he was doing the Eazy-E boom, you know, the booming speakers. Because back then it was about subs. He was doing the Ruthless subwoofers and stuff like that. He was designing like video games, like how you see Grand Theft Auto. He was designing the Boys in the Hood video game. You know, before any of this was even an ideal. You know, that's the brilliance of him. Plus, he was running the company basically himself with the vision that he had and turned it into a multi-million-dollar conglomerate. So I think that's what people rule out. I think people, they look at like how we all fell out with each other in the sense of Dre moving on and those guys going on and do what they did. They just kind of look at Eazy like, oh, well, he was fucking people or he was doing this. He really wasn't like that because actually the funny thing about all of those things, those accusations that people say, no one ever proved that that's what he done. No one ever proved that he fucked anyone over, from Ice Cube to Dre. No one ever proved that. That he was, you know, people got what they signed to. You know what I mean? At the time that they signed. So I think that's the biggest misconception to me.
Hutch, did Eazy-E ever talk to you about going to the White House?
Well, we had a conversation about after he went to the White House because me and him being really close, it kind of threw me for a loop when all these things we were anti all of that, right? The system, the establishment, and everything. And I guess the point about the brilliance of a businessman, he broke it down and he said, yeah, you know, all the homies is mad, you know, because I made this move. He said, but first of all, you know, I'm not in support of anything, you know, and I'm about trying to cause change, shake shit up, make a difference. He said, now, here it is. I could get close enough to shoot the president of the United States in the eye with a paperclip. You know what I mean? Now, a year or two ago, they didn't even want me in here. But it took me to buy $1,000 plate to sit down with those motherfuckers and support whatever bullshit that they got going on. But I got millions of dollars worth of press. What rapper in the game has done that? What businessman is able to do that? Period. And shake shit up. He said, I don't give a fuck about politics like that. Straight up. That's a brilliant business move. So,
Can you take us fans inside the Death Row Ruthless Records beef?
well, yeah. I mean, I think when you're young, I mean, one thing I will say, this is my insight. You know, being a younger guy that came around doing the breakup and being one of the younger guys, because I'm younger than them, you know, um, and I was a new guy on the scene, basically, and being a part of the whole thing and it building up and growing and exploding like it done. The inside of it, which was really bad, was that you watch friends turn into enemies almost overnight, you know. And you have friends that had to choose sides, you know, to keep it honest with everybody, you know, like not that you sided with Easy, but you know, I was still up under a heavy contract. Me and the rest of Above the Law was under a very long, extensive contract, and then it just began, you know, 2 years into them breaking up. Well, it was really hard to see the harmony that we had 2 years before that, and then up to the breakup, which was really kind of, you know, it's like a family divided. You know, like, you know, some people, you know, like it's hard to talk to Dre because he's mad at Eric, and then talk to Eric because he's mad at Dre. Then it's hard to talk to Doc or Michelle A because they may be thinking like, oh, we picking sides, and then it may seem like we're all talking behind each other's backs. You know, and that's the type of thing that was going on during that breakup. Now, when you figure when Cube left, it really wasn't that. You know, Cube kind of rolled in the sunset like a cowboy and kept it pushing, you know. And much props to Cube because, you know, he kind of went out and did what he did, and he really didn't, you know, he never looked back, basically. You know, and that was hard to do coming from, you know, the world's most dangerous organization at the time. We were like regulating the game really heavy. Ruthless was, you know. But and in a sense, that was kind of a light blow because no one really wanted him to leave. But his thing was that he wanted to do his thing, and he didn't want to wait, and he wanted to move on. And he didn't like the dynamics of Eric and Jerry Heller's relationship, so he rolled on. The thing about all of us collectively breaking up, you know, the whole group of family dispersing, the original family dispersing, was really hard because we were like a family, you know. And although people would still, you know, Law would still be in you know, in good graces with Cube, and you know, and we totally fell out with him, you know, because of other things. And then when the rest of the group broke up, it was very, very hard because it was the same thing happening over and over again, but everybody was doing it. The relationship between Jerry Heller and Eazy wasn't, you know, wasn't relative to the rest of the guys. And everybody had a kind of a problem with that, you know. So when Dre moved on and Doc and Michelle A kind of moved on with Dre, it was kind of disheartening, you know what I'm saying? There was a lot of things going on that was really bad because you have to realize we were a close-knit family at that time. We weren't just like people that came together to make records. We made history. We built an empire together. So it's just like this big, great family just, you know, everyone had to choose sides, and it was really, you know, really heartfelt, and it was fucked up, man. You know, people, I mean, I know those people have moved on and have had bigger careers, but they won't admit it. But it was a point that was fucked up, you know, to where there were feelings involved. It wasn't just about the money because we done everything together, from threw parties at each other's houses, hung out at clubs together, ran the streets, you know, went to movies, that kind of thing. Where we hung out together. So through picnics, through pool parties, whatever you can name, you know, that family do.
Were you surprised that Dr. Dre linked up with Suge Knight, who was a bodyguard at that time?
No, I wasn't. Because Suge was a very, you know, he was a very headstrong, you know, solid guy as far as his connects were solid, you know, at that particular time. I wasn't really surprised. One thing that threw me for a loop is how Suge had more control actually over the situations when Dre was the talent and he was just the business part of it, as far as Dre was he was the lure for the business to happen, you know. I thought of it like, say for instance, let's all look at it like this: like a manager should get so much of a percentage of something, and the artist or the person that's the draw takes home the lion's share. It's funny how they became more even, and he was controlling the situation more than Dre was. That's the only thing that kind of threw me for a loop because Suge had a lot of connects at that point. Yeah, he did security, but he had a lot of connects and he had some great ideas and he wanted to stand for the right part of what the artist needed. When he got into thing for a period of time, he managed above the law. Didn't work out. We were in a transition where law had stepped down as our management and we hired Suge for a period of time. It just didn't work because him and Eazy could never get along and we wanted to continue to stay at Ruthless. They could never get along. So it didn't really surprise me because he was like co-managing Doc while we were at Ruthless, and then he was doing, he was moonlighting doing security as well. So he had the kind of a mind for management to get things in perspective, But I just think it got kind of weird when he was on the same level playing field as Dr. Dre was. When Dr. Dre was this prestigious guy that had produced all these records at the time, we were one of the biggest independent conglomerates it was.
Once again, this is J-Mix here. I want to thank all my YouTube subs and viewers. Got more to come with Big Hutch, plus many more big names. Keep it locked right here, and I'll see everybody on my next upload. One love, everybody.
A J-Mix exclusive.
What up, shut up?